an ancient Gaulish capital of Bibracte. It stood here more than 2,000 years ago before the Roman invasion came to Gaul. It's very difficult to understand what the people of Gaul were like because of course they're barbarians. We know what the Romans had to say about them, but they were biased, and we have archaeological evidence that we can piece together. But essentially we don't have the Gauls' testimony to what they were like. What we can understand from the evidence in Bibracte and other places like it is that the Gauls were very much like us. If we were transported back in time, we'd recognise it as a hustling, bustling city. Within its walls there were farms, there were marketplaces, there was economic activity, there were marriages, there were children, and all the rest of it. It calls to mind the phrase of Victor Serge, of people separated from this time who are infinitely like us and infinitely different from us. Because of course, while they are very similar to us in many ways, they also indulged in trepanning, drilling holes into their heads, probably for some religious reason, a procedure they normally survived and something that they enjoyed so much that people would go back to it on more than one occasion. They also believed in slavery. While they could have understood a slave's desire to no longer be a slave, they wouldn't have understood the idea of a society without slavery itself. But essentially these are people very similar to us in many ways, who are rubbing along with each other. They're not barbarians always hacking each other to pieces. These are clean-shaven, civilised, articulate people who are wealthy, who have fertile lands, who have gaudy, ostentatious displays of their wealth and the gold that they have. And essentially if we met one of them today, they'd be as reasonable and as unreasonable as anyone that we know. So ancient Gaul wasn't all fun and games and love and laughter. We have 7 kilometres of fortifications going round Bibracte to keep out raiders, possibly to keep in slaves, and most of all to keep out invaders, like Julius Caesar. So who were the Romans? Clearly we have an impression of the Romans that they were in their spotless white togas, giving civilised speeches in the Senate, and having a law and ethics above all other civilisations. Certainly that's what they tell us they were like. However, we also know this is a society based on war, based on slavery, and most of all based on brutality. This is a society where citizens would watch gladiators, watch slaves hack at each other in the arena, where their gold and all their labour was the product of slavery and plunder. War was an expensive enterprise. Why did Julius Caesar come to Gaul with tens of thousands of soldiers and take 10 years trying to defeat these people? The fact is, Rome was an interesting place. It wasn't like the despotisms of many countries which relied on the strength of their king. They had a kind of democracy, a slave-owning democracy, a very strictly hierarchical democracy, but a democracy nonetheless that allowed different forces to come to the fore, that allowed some sort of flexibility, and was in part why they were able to grow to the Roman Empire was eventually able to grow to the extent it did. But in the decades prior to Julius Caesar's invasion of Gaul, the Roman Republic had been racked with civil war, with uprisings and rebellions, and with invasion from the east from the mighty king Bibracte of Pontus. The fact is that they had had decades of killing, where hundreds of thousands of Romans have been under arms at any one time in that period, putting down Suetonius in Spain, putting down the Spartacan revolt, with a civil war where Gaius Marius first took Rome and pinned the heads of his enemies to the gates of Rome, and then Sulla became dictator of Rome and hacked off their heads and piled them in the forum of his enemies, taking their wealth. The fact is that after decades of war, Rome was broke, while in Gaul, even relatively lowly Gauls might have gold around their neck, would have fertile lands. In Rome, gold coins had almost disappeared. Julius Caesar's expedition to Gaul was in order to save Rome, to fill its coffers back up. They were going to use the land and the slaves they could collect in Gaul, as well as the gold, in order to prop up what could have been a failing empire that was suffering after decades of strife. But because they're a democracy, because they have morals and ethics, they don't just say, we're going to go and loot Gaul. There has to be a reason. And Julius Caesar invents a reason. He says that the Germans are going to be invading the peace-loving peoples of Gaul. And who will protect them if it is not us? And the Senate give him a title. They give him the title of Protector of Gaul. And he sets off with probably something like 40,000 legionaries to protect Gaul from the bloodthirsty Germans who 30 years previously had tried to invade Italy and had tried to take down Rome. It was difficult for anyone to say that he didn't apply himself with vigour to the task. Certainly the million Gauls he killed protecting Gaul could tell you that, or the 500,000 Germans that he killed, or even the Britons that he killed as he passed over the English Channel and had a little go in Britain as a kind of detour in his European holiday. 10 years he spent in Gaul, developing allies, like all good imperialists, dividing and ruling, and in the end conquering Gaul and coming back with his personal wealth enhanced, with legions who worshipped him like a god, and with his reputation such that he could become dictator when he returned to Rome.